Good afternoon. Happy 4th of July, 2024. Hi, I'm Paul Sugarman, founder of the Instant Shakespeare Company. And because I have the Instant Shakespeare Company and I hence have my own sort of YouTube channel, I can sort of do what I want. And one of the things that I always like to do on every 4th of July is read the Declaration of Independence, because it's got a lot of things in it that are really great. And I mean, a lot of things in it that I really would like our country to achieve that we haven't yet, as well as some other parts that really, let's say, just haven't aged well. So I just want to read that, the Bill of Rights, the Gettysburg Address, and then, I mean, if anybody else by that point joins and wishes to make any comments to the Zoom reading, I will be happy to welcome them. But first, what I would like to do is just say, wow. I mean, not only is this sort of generally been a really tough year after, I don't know about you, but for me personally, I mean, the last few years have been really tough in many ways, and just also some of the things that just happened recently, you know, which really sort of the debate, and then with the Supreme Court basically sort of saying that, oh yeah, well, if the president thinks, I mean, really taking us, the law of the land is now what Richard Nixon said, well, it's legal if the president wants to do it, you know, which was just sort of thought of as beyond the pale 50 years ago, and now that is our judicial doctrine. And so that makes me very, very sad and unhappy about being a citizen of the United States, you know, which, I mean, I'm proud of a lot of things. There's a lot of great things about this country, and there are many terrible things. But anyways, let me save the rest of the sermonizing for after. Let us proceed then with a reading of the Declaration of Independence. In Congress, July 4, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume, among the powers of the earth, the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as that to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government, and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us and endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rules of warfare is an indistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in the attention of our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations which inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. These too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind. Enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state and Great Britain ought to have been totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And they're the representatives of the 13 colonies, with John Hancock's name, of course, being at the top. And we have people here, so I'm going to stop sharing and let them in. Sorry. Hey, Kitty, welcome. Sorry. Welcome. Thanks. I was just sort of in the middle of that, and I didn't notice right away. But hey, so yes, we are here doing that. That's the Declaration of Independence. All the names. I encourage people to watch the musical 1776. That's what I'll probably do today, because that's a good bit of American history. I mean, there's also, of course, well, Hamilton doesn't really focus as much on the Declaration. And hey, Kitty, welcome. Yes.
I just got in toward the end. I was having trouble. Well, now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize until, because I was like sharing the screen, and so I didn't notice that you'd raised your hand for a bit. So that's why it took a while for me to let you in, because I was also, I was in sort of in the middle. But,
you were involved.
Yes, I do. I mean, because there's a lot of things in it that are really sort of, for one thing, when it objects to, like, you're not letting enough people come and immigrate to this country. I like that. I like that part. But the thing about, oh yeah, but you've also the where they refer to the Native Americans as the merciless Indian savages, which is, yeah. But it is.
I didn't realize so long as that. I guess I never, in school, you only study part of it, because a lot of it is not familiar to me. I never heard it.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, because it was an important thing to get them all to really agree on that. And it's also, I mean, it's really the beginning, because I believe, because it was the Second Continental Congress, but I think this was the first thing where they sort of said, we are the United States of America. and actually, I mean, we didn't really sort of really become the United States until like when we 17, like the end of the 1780s, when we had the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all that. But it still was that this idea is that yes, this country of these 13 original colonies were the United States of America, not just British colonies.
I'm sorry I didn't hear the whole thing. It was very good to hear. You were really great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I often, what I used to do, I mean, before Zoom generally, I would just go out in front of my house and just sort of read it, and sometimes some of the neighbors would sort of like look and listen a little bit, but yeah, so I figured, well, now I can do it just on, and put it up here.
Go to Washington Square or something and read it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, because I mean, I think it is important to do it, and the idea that it really is about, I mean, independence, and we want freedom, and it's like that. Those are the sorts of principles that this country was built on, and we've always still, even back then and still today, we're fighting against the people who want to have, I mean, the government impose on our lives in ways, and what's really amazing to me is that it's like that people see that as being something that the Democrats are doing, when it's the Republicans and the Republican-controlled Supreme Court have done in their, I mean, it just staggers the mind, this judicial decision last week. They were so embarrassed they couldn't bring it out in June. They had to wait till July to sort of say, oh yeah, the president's above the law for any official acts, which is like basically what Nixon said. So it's just, that is, I think that may, well, hopefully in time we'll get past
what the kings of England were doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's tyrannous. And that's also the thing. I mean, the idea of these lifetime appointments that is tyrannous, and it's a relic and remnant of the sort of old aristocratic past of kings and their appointed, because it was like those were the people who sort of always had the power in this country, who've had the money, and basically it's like you went too far and taxed them too much, and but it is so. Yeah, no, we do need to do that. I do also want to then read. Someone had suggested also the Gettysburg Address, and I like to read the Bill of Rights, the first 10. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution, which I think are in a lot of ways so much. I mean, the Constitution is so important in terms of sort of putting the basic framework of how this government is going to work, and been working pretty well for like almost 250 years. And then it's like, didn't, kind of see if we can make it to that. But that the Bill of Rights was really added on so that people would get behind it and talk about that, making sure that it's not, oh, we're not just imposing this other thing upon it, that we have rights. So do you want me to read that, or does anyone else want to read those? Or?
We can
read whatever.
Yeah, whatever you like.
Okay, well, why don't, if you guys want to, I mean, I don't know if you have them up, or if I do it like with share screen, can you?
Yeah, share screen. I don't have to. It took a long time. It'll take a long time to find them.
Yeah. Okay.
Why don't we alternate?
Yeah, that sounds good. I've just got to get to the right. Oh yeah, I need to close this window. Close that window. Sorry about that. Let's see. Stop. Let me I just need to. I thought I had it all queued up on my Chrome. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so now let me just get back, and I will start sharing it. And then, since I read the whole declaration, why don't you guys can alternate reading of it? But let me just put it up for you.
I don't know. I can't get it. Where is it now?
No, it's not up yet.
Okay.
You see it? Can you see it on the screen?
I need to increase the size.
You'll have to scroll, but we can.
Yeah, I will scroll it down as we get.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Here goes.
Wait a minute,
Amendment.
I have to change the,
I'm sorry, I don't know if I can do anything to make it bigger. Let's see, does that?
I can't get the whole thing on at the same time.
Yeah, well, yeah, you don't have the whole thing.
Yeah,
I'll
you
scroll
can't.
through it, but
I
just
mean, just left to right, I mean,
Oh.
yeah.
Well,
let's see if I do it
Okay,
something
now
like
I got
this.
it.
Does that work
Oh,
better?
yeah,
yeah, that's
Is that
fine.
better?
Okay.
All
don't
right.
touch it.
Here
Is that
goes. Amendment 1. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law.
The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
Now, can you go back a little bit? Okay. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense.
In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law.
Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted.
The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people.
The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people.
thank you. Yes, yes, that's great. I mean, I love all of the right. I mean, there's so many great things and so many things that still have, pleading the fifth. That is the that amendment and all of these sorts of things. Like especially, I mean, that were really sort of groundbreaking and that also is not really common the rest of the world over of freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. I mean, the First
Freedom
Amendment.
of religion.
Yeah, absolutely. And freedom of religion and the idea that this was a haven for people of all religions, not
Not just Christianity.
They're very protective of the defendant, of the defendant's rights. That's very impressive.
Yeah.
yeah, it is because it's like these were the concerns because of course they'd been subject, I mean, as bad as things are now, I mean, just sort of imagine what it was, I mean, under George, where he was just such a bad king that he kept having to raise taxes and it's like, oh, I don't want to do it on people at home, so I'll raise them on all the colonies, and it's like, it's just
Actually, the Tudors and the Stuarts were worse.
Oh yeah, 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 absolutely. Well, I mean, also that's the idea is like not kings, not kings, and that was one of the great things from I mean our George Washington that actually after that they wanted to make him king, and he was like no, you know. I mean, and that is just one of the things where you see somebody's like really is concerned
Not
about
getting
the country as opposed to making money for themselves, you know, which.
Funny.
yeah. Mhm.
After all that, they wanted to make him king.
Yeah, 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 you know, and that's also I mean, one of the things with the
Somebody
concept.
definitely didn't get the point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, well, that's what we're used to, so we'll just have our own kings, and then they can, you know, it's like, yeah, yeah. You really want to do that? Have you read the Henry VI plays? Come on,
Mhm.
all of the sorts of civil wars and our civil war that was you see even inherent there in the way they compromised in the Constitution, you know, and the stuff that they didn't put in the Declaration, you know, and
Yeah.
nebulous. Um, so, I mean, I think that this is, I mean, yeah, it's
Mhm.
and it's just it's also I mean because there's so many things with recent sort of Supreme Court decisions which just fly in the face of so many of these rights. The idea that it's like, no, it's not cruel and unusual punishment to arrest people for being houseless, you know, and it's and all of these sorts of things. So that town, I mean, so we just have this sort of
I
NIMBY and
know.
pushing
Well,
everybody out.
not just that, but there's just a meanness about it that
Yeah,
is.
it's very true. It's
King
very
people now for homelessness? Are they
yeah.
arrested?
Oh yeah,
Well, basically there
they're, if
was.
they're arrested for vagrancy. I mean, if you find that they can be arrested for say sleeping on the street,
Uh-huh.
on the sidewalk, or something like that.
So they
Yeah.
have to have show proof of residence before they get hauled away or something?
Well, no, see, the thing is that what it was, they lower courts, it was the Supreme Court actually overturning what lower courts had sort of said was that the what they would do is it's like, oh, well, you're not getting out of here, then you're under arrest and we're putting you in jail, you know, for just for not having a place to live, and also that the town doesn't have any, or the municipality doesn't have any place for them to stay, and so they arrest them, and that was lower courts had ruled that was cruel and unusual punishment, but Supreme Court, the worst Supreme Court in history, just
Overturn that.
no that they can do that. They have their rights to do what they sort of want to do, you know, and it's just I mean it's really
Oh, and
it's disgraceful, and I mean the worst of their they saved the worst of their decisions for last, their most nakedly partisan one since the 5-4 Bush v. Gore decision that decided the 2000 election rather than just following the state's own procedures and actually counting the votes and see who actually won Florida. But that was
Republicans aren't about rights anymore unless it's their rights. It's all about power mongering.
yeah. Yeah, I know it is, and it really is about. I mean, one of the sorts of things that was hoped, and that you kind of see, sort of even went to a more sort of extreme thing in the French Revolution, is that it's like it's these rich people who just are going to make money off of people's sufferings and really don't care, you know, which is why slavery was allowed to continue in this country for so long, and why we still have so many.
Donald Trump being Exhibit A.
Yeah, please. Ugh. Yeah, yeah, no. So we'll do that and just have to see if he gets. Keep reminding him of the Bill of Rights, you know, because there's so many sorts of things that he seems drawn to do against those, except for the second one, which is also it's a well-regulated militia. Do people not hear that those words are in the Second Amendment? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be abridged. You know, it's like that
All they hear is the right of the people.
Yeah, but it's like you don't this it's you can't just sort of take the second half of the Second Amendment. You should take the whole Second Amendment, as you should understand the whole Bill of Rights. And one of my personal favorites is the ninth, where it sort of says other rights not specifically enumerated are reserved to the people. Basically, sort of like the idea that we all have natural human rights that are reserved to the people, such as the right to make decisions about our own bodies. And
the right to decide who we're voting for.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is really, really scary. I mean, because that decision, I just couldn't imagine that it would really go like that, but it did, and that even Roberts would.
Hey, these are Republicans we're talking about. So-called conservatives, even though these are radical changes they're making, so they can't really call themselves conservatives.
No, it is. I mean, that is the total sort of Orwellian sort of thing about it, is that they say they're conservatives, but they're
not.
Not
conserving anything.
I mean, there's the idea of it's like, well, you have precedent and you have to stick with precedent but for Alito and Thomas, they just want to do what they want to do, and all of the newbies are happy to step behind them, and it's just,
yes,
it's really, I mean, it's like, I think that this is probably, as long as they've been keeping polls of how people have thought about the Supreme Court, it is probably at its lowest ebb, and will continue to do so until there's serious reforms, such as the idea that if we were to have a Democratic majorities in the House and Senate and a Democratic president, that they could, the legislature has
and constitutional amendments, so that the Supreme Court can't say, "Oh, we can overturn that because it's unconstitutional." It has to actually be in the Constitutional and even then they might say, "It doesn't violate the Constitution."
Well, I mean, there are things where it has been good, and a lot of times, I mean, we sort of have a backlash because of the great success of how, I mean, the Supreme Court under Earl Warren really, with Brown versus the Board of Education and other decisions, really moved our country forward a lot faster than the political leaders were ready for. And also for that people have reacted against, and we're still feeling the backlash, and I mean, but it's just, I mean, hopefully, well, we'll see. It's an interesting year, 2024. So far, it's been an interesting year, and it's going to continue to be an interesting year. But we're still, I mean, almost, what is it? 5 months till the election, so we'll see what can change between now and then. And
everything.
I mean, I'm hoping there may be some good changes.
No, every day I look at the news and I hope that there won't be another piece of bad news, and there always seems to be.
Yeah.
They're always ruling in favor of Trump or his allies or Republicans or somebody, and every day I just feel like now I feel like what else can go wrong?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, is that we can't expect justice from the Supreme Court because they're just partisans. That's all. I mean, it just is not justice, unfortunately. And so we have to
Supreme Court injustices.
Yeah, and it's the idea. It's like, also, why has it been set at 9? It could either be a larger thing, or I think the idea is it's like it's like, okay, great, you're a federal judge for life, but you're on the Supreme Court for 18 years. That would be like that you have one term for 18 years. And because otherwise, I mean, like, the Republicans have also gamed the system by putting in all of these very young judges. I mean, like, that's why Thomas will probably soon be the longest serving Supreme Court justice. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, Ken, welcome.
Hi, Ken.
Hi.
So, yeah.
No, I had forgotten about this. I found it by accident.
Yeah.
You did the declaration already?
Yes, I did. And we just read the Bill of Rights. And so I do want to, and we are still, this is on Zoom and live streaming on YouTube. And I want to also read the Gettysburg Address. And I was wondering.
Yes, I had a good recording of Charles Lawton reading that.
Yeah.
So, when I hear it, I hear his voice, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ken, on the screen, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ken, can you read it? Can you see it on the screen?
Something happened to my screen.
Let me see. Yeah, Paula's showing the Gettysburg Address.
Yeah.
Screen.
Yeah, but you can't. Can you see? You can't see it, Ken.
I lost the picture.
You lost picture. Okay, if we can't see you, but you can't see your screen either, right? Okay. All right. Well. I mean, I don't know if we.
Go off, come back.
Yeah, no, it's okay. If you could see it, I would just say that you could read it, but since you can't, I don't know. I don't know if do you want to split this up, or do you want either of you just want to read it, or?
We each read it, the whole thing. I think I had to memorize this when I was in grade school. I'm sure I still have it, but I'd love to read it.
Okay, go ahead, Kitty.
Okay, Gettysburg Address delivered at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, November 19th, 1863. 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Wow. Thank you so much. Yes, it is such a great, wonderful speech. And it talks about the fact that was even then and even now unfinished work. I mean, it's 160 years plus since the Gettysburg Address, which was looking back and to the Declaration of Independence and saying, well, there's still unfinished work, and there's still a lot of unfinished work. And it's really, it's just, it's like we're
unfinished. All unfinished.
Yes.
And the speech, I think the speech itself was pretty much impromptu. If I read about when Lincoln was on his way to Gettysburg to give it, it was kind of the speech itself was unfinished and kind of impromptu.
No, and I mean, I think, and it's also, he's like, he's such a, I mean, he's got such a great speaker, and he really loved Shakespeare so much, and you see, there's a lot of things that you compare this with Mark Antony's speech. Some of the things that he does, it's like sort of making an idea by sort of, well, the people won't know to remember what we say here, and it's like, yeah, no, they have,
Mhm.
and, although at the
Yeah.
time I thought he didn't have like a great reception, and he thought it hadn't gone over well. Because it's like the guy who'd introduced him had gone on for like, almost a half hour, because people, they didn't
Yeah.
have radio, they didn't have television, they just talked, and so you would have sermons that would go on for hours, and just people who would just talk and talk and talk. And but
Yeah.
he said what needed to be said, and I mean the idea is that we still have this unfinished work, but we still have to dedicate our cause of government of the people, by the people, for the
For
people.
the people.
Yeah, and and see, that's the thing. I mean, like, whatever, I mean, anybody might think about Joe Biden, he, I think, sincerely wants to do what's best for the whole country, for everybody. Trump, I think, wants to just do good for his rich friends and the people on his side, and to do that by screwing over those people who are stupid enough to be against him. And
He
it's
doesn't
like,
have,
that is just,
Trump doesn't care about his friends. I mean, if he has to choose between himself and his friends, he's always going to choose himself.
yeah.
Well, his friends
Anyone in himself, he always puts himself first.
if his friends give him money,
He doesn't. And those friends are just there to glorify him, not because he cares about them.
he's a
In their
freak.
own.
He's a freak of nature. I just to look at his face is appalling. It fills you with a kind of
Yeah. I know. It's like that's why I couldn't watch the debate. I can't stand to see his face. I can't stand to hear his voice. I couldn't even listen back during his administration. I couldn't listen to him give any State of the Union address. I was just so revolted.
he's not right.
No, and I mean it's just it's sort of incredible to me that sort of every Republican president makes me nostalgic for the previous Republican president, because it's like, wow, I thought George W. Bush was bad, but he actually still really believed in democracy, and wow, but yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I just
There's no low to which Trump will not sink.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I think it's not that he's like such a freak of nature as a sort of natural product of capitalism. First of all, one of the things they say about George W. Bush, he was like born on third base and thought he'd hit a triple, and that's what, I mean, with Trump, with him sort of being the son of this real estate guy, and having all of this money, and having, while he was starting out, he got like, a couple $1 million loan from his dad to sort of get him started in real estate, which is real estate, it's like it keeps going up, right? I mean, I don't remember any sort of news of it's like affordable housing being because the prices are going down. No. It always keeps rising, and that I think is one of the biggest parts of our sort of parasite economy is real estate. And he made money in real estate, but anybody can make. If you have money in real estate, it's not that difficult to make more money, because it's like.
childhood did Trump have? What kind of
What?
family? What?
Well, his father was a real estate developer.
Right?
Yeah, who was an immigrant who came from Germany, I believe. And but anyways, but yeah, it's also his family. This sort of idea of it's like why immigrants, they should come here legally the way we did. But it's like for most white people, I mean, it was there's no problem. Come on in. It was
Everybody else is like, don't come in. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just sort of ridiculous when we have people from Central and South America who are actually far more native to this continent than us. I mean, than people from Europe or from. I mean, it's ridiculous.
His father came as an adult to this country, or
I don't remember the whole history. I think his father came as a young man, but and I mean, this is one of the also things that I really love about the Declaration of Independence is the idea that it talks about that we. how how much did they've stopped people from coming to this country. We want more people to come to this country, and I think that we should do that. I mean, we could do that. And I mean, it's just sort of fear and people who are in power and sort of afraid of the factions like, oh, well, how could we deal with that because we can't get enough housing for people? And it's like, we can't get enough housing for people because we don't want to have enough housing for people. Because real estate is, I mean, one of the biggest donors to sort of politicians at all sorts of levels. And they, you don't want to, if you really had affordable stuff for everybody, they wouldn't be able to make so much money. I mean, that's the long and the short of it. And that's how capitalism ruins the party again.
Entrenched selfishness.
Yeah, exactly. And we could do that. And I mean, especially because so much of the suffering that is happening all over the world is caused by the actions of America and American corporations and the United States doing things defending the rights of corporations over native peoples. And we have to
stop it.
Yeah.
Government assistance.
Yeah, no, it is, but we'll see, we'll see where we are next year when we read the Declaration of Independence. I mean, maybe
You do the
I do this every year. I've done it for the last few years on Zoom because it's like I used to just sort of do it. I'd go out in front of my house. I may also do that today and read it again in front of my house.
we could go out to Central Park or Times Square or something and read it.
Yeah, because for me, this is really much more what celebrating the 4th of July is about, is that this idea of
I really
independence.
appreciate it. I think people would appreciate it because we take it all for granted. We don't know. We know the big phrases by the people they know all that stuff, but we don't hear it. I think we should do that.
Yeah, no, that would be maybe next year we'll do that, to do that and then like have copies of it. It's like, here I have a copy of the Declaration, keep it for you so you can read it and see how we're doing to try and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I mean, I think those are.
I think it will make people think. We take it all for granted. We have so much, and we take it all for granted.
Yeah.
We're so fortunate here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's so many great blessings of this country, but so many of the things that people who use the word liberty, meaning something for a very sort of like, don't tread on me, my freedom for me. And, but it's really the idea of this country is it's a freedom for everybody. And, that the first sort of people to come, I mean, the pilgrims who were, fleeing religious persecution, so that they could come here and persecute others and colonize and all that sort of stuff. But the idea and the ideal that I think is really important and that is essential to this country is that we have to say that we are not a Christian nation. And if we were a Christian nation, we're doing a really lousy job of taking care of all the people here, which should be the first responsibility of a Christian nation, not imposing your will on everyone. But that we need to just take care of each other better, and that's what we need to, that's what I feel we need to focus on. And there's a lot of stuff to be patriotic about. So, is there anything else anybody would like to say? So, all right. Well, just anyways, it's happy 4th of July, everybody. And thank you all. And we'll hope that I encourage everybody, if you disagree with me, think I'm crazy. Thank you. And even if you disagree.
I need to read it again. I haven't read it since grade school.
Yeah, it's a great thing. I mean, these are three really, the fundamental documents of our country, which, expresses ideals that are part of, as Abraham Lincoln says, the unfinished work that this country is of really bringing the government of the people, by the people, for the people.
We have so much, we take it all for granted.
Yeah, we do.
Absolutely.
So fortunate. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so yeah, thank you all, and we'll be back next with Merchant of Venice on Saturday, and the Declaration of Independence next year.